Welcome to the Priggya Arora Show, where we discuss law, innovation, and entrepreneurship with people who have been there and done that. My name is Priggya Arora, founder of PA Legal, an intellectual property law firm in India. And today we have Mr. Warren Tuttle with us. He's a specialist in the field of open innovation, and we'll dive in a conversation with him. Welcome, Warren, on the show. I'm so excited to meet you.
Well, likewise, Priggya, thanks for having me. I know we're on different continents. I'm in the New York City area in the United States, and it's my pleasure to converse with you in India. It's really exciting.
Wow. So, Warren, let us start with your story and how did you enter into the field of open innovation?
Well, I could go on for a few hours, but I'll make it as quick as possible. I sort of was an entrepreneur in my youth growing up. I had my own paper route when I was a boy. I shoveled driveways and washed windows and took care of people's lawns, and all through my college years to earn money. I went to work after college in New York City at a department store called Abraham and Strauss. It was a wonderful place to learn how to become a buyer and a merchant. I spent 6 years there and learned a great deal. I was in the housewares area, but I always wanted to be in my own business. I always wanted to get back to what I was doing, which was working hard, but scheduling my own hours. So I left there and I started my own collection of stores. They were called the Complete Kitchen.
Wow.
They were a high-end sort of specialty kitchenware shop like Williams Sonoma. I don't know if you're familiar in India, but here in the US, they're quite big. I had a cooking school. I had a food business. I had a chef's takeout. I kept growing it. I finally had 65 employees, and I was very involved. And one day an inventor walked in with a product that ended up being called Misto, the olive oil sprayer. And I had been very good at finding new products. I write about it in my book, Inventor Confidential. I had launched about 10 or 12 new products. But this gentleman was different. He was an inventor. He was hadn't made any of the products yet. He just had a prototype. And it was an oil sprayer that allowed you to spray. Oil has very heavy viscosity, olive oil, and so this was a patented product that solved that problem. And that, I don't know in India what you have, but in here in America we have a product called PAM, PAM. It's a very big oil spray.
Yeah.
But it uses a propane gas to fire it. When you're done, you have to throw the can away, so it goes in the landfill, and it's there's preservatives in it. And also, this was all natural, reusable, and Misto was a big hit. We went on to sell millions, and it changed my life. And so then I decided to sell all my stores and get into the business of helping inventors. This is about 25 years ago.
Wow.
And ever since, I've been getting involved with companies, running open innovation programs, working with inventors as the president of the largest nonprofit inventor group in the US, the United Inventors Association, serving on many government panels and writing a book but otherwise I've licensed over 125 products, which have generated between things I've sold over $1 billion in sales. So it's been a fun, active life.
Warren, that's why, I am so excited to meet you and to learn about this, because IP commercialization in India itself is very, very new. We are beginning, we are in the stage where people protect their IP, people innovate, people make products, but they are not able to commercialize to the extent they can. And if I can learn and people through this podcast can learn from you, maybe we can implement and together help so many people around.
Well, my pleasure. And that is, it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's also not simple.
Correct.
It takes a bit, for people who are listening today, and I'm not trying to sell anything here. Trust me, I'm not a salesman, more of a mechanic. But I did write a book called Inventor Confidential, which can be gotten on Amazon. And if people want to read a little bit more and get a little bit more depth on this, but it's not easy, Priggya. It's A lot of things have to come together,
Correct.
and the odds are long, and the risk can be high. So you want to mitigate. I don't know if that word is right. You want to reduce your
Yeah.
risk, mitigate your risk, but at the same time follow, your leads. It doesn't always work out, so you have to be kind of tough, and but I try to be very real with people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people here in the United States. There's companies that are always telling inventors, oh, you can do it, and just pay me and you can do it. And so they make money, but the people that are actually doing it, are not making money. And that's actually kind of upsetting to me. So I believe in businesses where everybody profits, and
Yeah.
to the extent that there's not profit in it, then I don't want to take people's money, and I don't take people's money. So
Absolutely amazing. So Warren, let's dive into, I think we'll have to start from the basics, like what is open innovation and how can people, companies, businesses, inventors, individuals benefit from open innovation?
perfect. So open innovation, I define it as the search by companies
Yeah.
outside their four walls for new innovation that they don't develop in-house, but they're looking for outside the company. The term was actually was coined by, I don't know if you can see it on screen, by Dr. Henry Chesbrough. He's written 9 books on open innovation. He coined it about 25 years ago, and he's a professor at the Haas Business School in Berkeley, California, University of California in Berkeley. And he was a proponent of describing, because frankly, at least in the United States, and I speak mostly, I need to be honest that most of my experience is from here in the United States. I have a little bit of experience in Europe, no experience really in India, but here in the United States, companies in the 1960s and the 1970s, they were all very what we call proprietary. So to describe that term, it means they were doing everything themselves in-house. They all had secret formulas, like Tide. Like Tide is a dishwasher, a cleaning product. It has a secret formula that only Procter and Gamble knew about, and they sell this, or McDonald's, there's a special sauce, on your burger, and nobody could take the special sauce. So everything was very proprietary. Companies battled each other for market share. And open innovation was the concept of, we don't have to do that. We can share information.
Yeah.
We can reach outside the company for innovators and do deals with them, licensing deals and things, so that everybody benefits. And Procter and Gamble was the first big company to do that. That was a book written by a guy named A.G. Lafley was the chairman, and he used sort of the principles that Henry Chesbrough, wrote about and proselytized, and they ended up at Procter and Gamble being quite successful going outside the company. And suddenly, almost 50% of their new products were from inventors and innovators around the world from outside the company. So then other companies like Lever Brothers followed them, and then more companies got in the open innovation space. So that was sort of the origins of it in the 70s and 80s, and it started becoming bigger in the 90s. But then, unfortunately, companies learn that it's not always easy. Sometimes they try these new ideas, they don't work, money spent on them. So there's a little bit of frustration that we've gone through. So you've seen the open innovation arena sort of expand and then sort of shrink back again. And today, more progressive companies are still doing it, but they don't really know how to do it and where to look. And it's amazing the cultural differences. Like, there's cultural differences between India, say, and the United States, but there's massive cultural differences between innovators, independent innovators, and large companies.
Correct.
They come from entirely different backgrounds, and they don't understand each other. So that's why I jumped in the space. I'm a translator. I'm Marco Polo. I'm trying to convince the big companies, and I show them how to do it, and try to convince the innovators how to approach them properly. So that's my mission in life, and we're taking a second charge at it. And in fact, I'm now involved in a startup company called Marketplace, which is going to take the things I've learned from the companies I've worked with and do it with hundreds, if not thousands, of companies. So we still believe in it. It just needs to be done properly, and people need to learn from the experience.
Correct. So I think one currently also, as you said, a lot of people want to get involved in this area, but they don't know how to. And many of the people are trying to develop an ecosystem where things can coexist together, or small inventors are able to reach out to companies and things like that. So here, we have uh, on one side we have a very strong intellectual property system where people are like, we have to protect our intellectual property, we have to protect it as a trade secret, we do not have to disclose things, we have to monetize based on the monopoly we get after protecting intellectual property. On other side, there is a concept of open innovation where people believe in sharing values, sharing experience, sharing innovation, and things like that. But these two things coexist together. Like if I have IP, I can still go into the licensing deals. So I think here it is very necessary to discuss how to maintain a balance and how to this coexistence live actually between the
Sure.
companies.
Well, I understand exactly what you're describing. Um, and there's two sides of it. So let's talk about the inventor or the innovator side. I'll use the word innovator because
Yeah,
it's more than just inventors.
correct.
Um, everything always starts the same way. It starts with an idea. It starts with then vetting that idea to see if anybody's pursued it already, what else exists in the marketplace. I write about this extensively in Inventor Confidential, and to me, it's very important to do things correctly, and that means, in my opinion, building a prototype that functions or proves function. Doesn't have to look nice, but
Yeah.
it has to work. Okay, and while you develop that prototype, then you're learning what mechanical parts to it function and make it function and are unique. And that's the basis of then looking into the intellectual property side of it, what can be protected. And I believe in doing all these things properly. If you're not a product developer yourself, getting someone involved that is, then looking into the patent side, the search side. If you're not an expert in that area, get a person that is like yourself to help. These are monies well spent in the beginning to sort of get through the barrier of translating your idea into a product. I am not a big believer in ideas, throwing ideas against the wall, because I've seen it 100,000 times, and they're not protected, easily taken. And companies, quite frankly, this idea that we throw an idea at a company and they magically just take it and pay you hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars is bogus. And even the people that claim it never really had that type of success with it. So I like to tell people the truth. You need to do the hard work,
Yeah.
and you can't just come up with 100 ideas and send them to me and I'm going to be your savior. You need to pick what the one that you think is going to make it, and present it that way. So for for innovators, then when they finally get to that point where they built a prototype, they figured out a patent, and then a decision has to be made. Do I want to go to market directly myself? Which is, I think, in some ways, I wouldn't say easier, but it's more, there's more opportunity than there was years ago. Now you can go on Amazon, you can do things yourself, you can set up your own websites, you can drive traffic there. That was not available 20 years ago, so that's a good thing. Or you may want to license it. Most people go the licensing route because it's easier, they can turn it over. Of course, when you go the licensing route, then you're paid a royalty, which is a smaller amount. And but hopefully they do bigger volume because maybe the company has great resources and they have brand names and shelf space and so forth. But if you do it yourself, it can be quite risky. So you really have to know what you're doing, get the right people involved, and be able to basically finance your risk. On the company side of things, they have many large companies, and the companies I work with have their own internal product development departments.
Yeah.
And they have heads of research and development, and some even bigger, quite sophisticated. But they tend to work within a corporate arena where they're not necessarily entrepreneurs, they're not necessarily savvy. There's a lot of pressures inside the company to perform a certain way, to act a certain way, and they're not always open-minded and different to see where subtle, disruptive, new stuff could be exciting. And so what I do for them is I add this other element that I manage for them. And then when we find something that's good and we vetted it and it makes sense, then they can latch on and then they can get involved with it, which is a nice thing. But for companies, the challenge is, how do you stay open-minded? How do you make decisions on things you move ahead with? And how do you invest in those so that you reap the rewards? And understanding that there's risk involved on your side too. But the beautiful thing is when it works, it can be dynamic and game-changing.
Yeah.
So, but all this is not easy to do. So we try to live in the real world, Priggya,
Yeah.
and let people know there's challenges on both sides and define it and then take it from there.
Correct. So, Warren, we understand like there are challenges on both sides, like inventor side and the company side too, because company is going to evaluate the product what inventor has developed, and inventor has to, I think, give their pitch in a right direction that what exactly is innovative in their product. So there has to be a balance on both sides. But for example, an innovator comes to you with a product, any product. For example, let me take, though this is a paper straw, but let's consider that this is a highlighter of some sort, a new highlighter which is developed. So if an innovator comes to you, what would you suggest him that what step he should take on his side to take the products into market? This is a very nascent stage and an example, but probably if we discuss some steps, people will have some idea like what do they actually need to do at the ground level.
Well, let me first start off by saying he or she.
Yeah, he or she.
And that's something that I'm very involved with here in America, is getting more people involved, minorities, women,
Yeah.
rural folks. We're only operating our innovation ecosystem here at about 25% efficiency in America. And so it's a big part of my life, and to try to turn that over. But if that's a new highlighter, the innovator needs to rationally, you know, the term rational, needs to realistically and appropriately determine what's unique and different about it. What's the value add in the product? Does it do something that other products don't do? Does it make life easier? Can it be made much less expensively? I mean, but these things need to be significant. You know, a 10% savings in cost is not going to get anyone excited. It needs to be, you know, 50% cheaper, or it needs to add to. So there has to be an evaluation, and that has to come from. So that's the first thing innovators can do is, and how do you do that? Well, you can go online, you can check Amazon, you can see what else is out there. Here in America, I'm not sure in India, but you'll have to translate this for me. But in America, let's say you had that product, I would go down to my local, you know, computer stores, or I would go to tech stores, and I would talk to the salespeople. I would show it to them. I'm not worried about them stealing the idea. I really am not individuals. I worry with companies, but not with individuals. Ask people what they think, whether they like it or not. As you develop it, try to talk to people who have some sort of expertise in it. And I'm not talking about the presidents of companies. Presidents of companies have expertise in running the companies. They really have expertise in the products they make. I mean, if you're a company that makes, you know, footballs for a football game, you know, the president usually doesn't even play football. You know, I would go talk to the football players, you know, and what do they think of it? Do they enjoy it? And so forth. So that's step number one. You need to, you know, determine that. And then you need to get very familiar with competition. And maybe there is no competition. Maybe it's so disruptive that nothing exists, but there's usually something that you can compare to. Like I mentioned Misto before, there was nothing in the housewares area, but there was something in the food area in Pam. So you want to play off that, see what you have and so forth. And that's very important. to build your foundation, because as you go forward, people are going to assume that you know what you're talking about, and you better know what you're talking about. And then the next step is, if let's just say, for example, that you want to license it and find bigger companies, then you have to go out and do your homework. Now, in America, I preach to people that it's really fun and good to go to trade shows.
Yeah.
We have a lot of trade shows in America. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but
Yes.
we have 30,000 trade shows in America. I mean, they're all very small in hotels to very large ones, Las Vegas or Chicago. There's in every industry. So if you have a housewares product, a hardware product, in this case, a tech product, you might want to go to the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, walk it for 4 days, go through all those little companies in the back to see. Be prepared to share some information with people, maybe not give the whole thing away. You can also go online and research companies. My new company, Market Blast, it's marketblast.com. We have about 100 companies right now doing searches. We're expanding that greatly. Over the next few months, we're going to have major announcements that with information to people that would link them into tens of thousands of companies. So more on that. We've been working on it, but more on that later. But there are different resources, but you need to go out and find out who might be the right partner for you. And then you need to go to those company websites and see if they take outside product submissions, to see what their process is. Some are very clear that they don't, so you stay away from them. For those that do, if you reach out and start, submitting, like at Lifetime Brands in the housewares area, I do that. We're set up to do that. There might be a point where in the beginning you just are sharing information. I wouldn't give anything away of specific value. For instance, if it was a wand that you were saying, or I forget what it was that we're talking about, but you could generally say, listen, I've developed this wand. It's 50% more efficient and it uses less energy and it's good for the environment. Would you be interested? That's not giving anything away. So that's okay. You could describe what you're up to get interest. If they then say, the company then comes back and says, yes, we are interested in that, then, and they want to see more, then you need to make a decision on sharing specifics. And then you need to do it under what we call a non-disclosure agreement.
Correct.
Sure, you're very familiar with that, but your listeners we call it an NDA here in the United States, but a non-disclosure agreement. I'm sure you have your equivalent in India with the legal system, that you sign an agreement that says that I will share specifics now. I will show you how I came up with this better product, but you cannot share that, nor can you profit from that. And so here's the thing though. Companies typically want you to sign their non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. It's because, I get thousands of submissions a year. I can't sign thousands of different NDAs and look through, it would be too costly. So I have my own NDA and the company has their own NDA. Yeah. So if that's the case, don't get discouraged. Just make sure you read through it. Make sure they check with someone like you, or their legal people if they're not sure about it, and make sure the NDA is fair.
Yeah.
Because that's a big indication, I have found, that whether the company is a good company and one worth working for. If the NDA is what we call onerous, then and it's all their way, I wouldn't deal with them, because it's only going to get worse as you get down the road. Our NDAs are very fair. People always compliment me on because we're trying to get to the next step. So a lot can be learned from the NDA in terms of whether the company is a good one or a bad one. So those are a few steps in the beginning to get you started and start the conversation with a larger entity.
Wow. I love the way you explained that in the initial stage, don't disclose too much information, because I think it will give a ground for infringement, or companies can come up with their product themselves.
That's so correct. But you got to give them something,
Correct.
I use a different example here in the United States, but I'll give it anyway because it's kind of. So do you guys mow your own lawns? And we have like lawns and we're always mowing them. So I always say, if you invented a lawnmower that can mow the lawn in half the time, And
Yes.
maybe you could be drinking a cocktail and it does it by itself. That's okay to say. You just say, I've invented a lawnmower that mows it half the time. But if they ask you, well, why, how can it do that? Now you have to be very careful with that information, because that's what they could take. So don't
Correct.
give anything away, and be very careful, but be polite. I always encourage people, be polite and friendly and nice.
Yeah.
I have had many, 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 many nice relationships with inventors, thousands over the years. There's every so often a jerk. I had one a couple of weeks ago that was a complete jerk, and life's too short,
Yeah.
for a know-it-all jerk. They're usually men, by the way. Men are like that. But then when you describe it, be brief, be
Yeah.
to the point. You don't have to sell me. Okay. This is important. This is really important. You don't have to sell me or a company in the first minute. Okay. It's just slow down and get them interested. Tell about what the general benefit is of it. And then if I'm doing my job, I come back to you and then I want to know more, and we develop a relationship. It's just like dating,
Correct.
you're not trying to make this sale, and you're not getting married in the first minute here. You just get to know each other a little bit better. And I urge people to be polite and keep the process going, to keep their options open.
Wow. Yeah, I love the chronology you gave. It's like dating. The first get to know who the buyer is and
Yeah,
to whom you are selling.
yeah.
And also, what I got from this conversation is we can disclose the use, what use or what utility or what cost benefit our product benefit or advantages of our product, but not the technology part of product, not the how our invention is going to work, how our innovation is going to work, or how our product is going to actually work.
That's right. When you get to that second date,
Correct.
before you do anything more,
Mhm.
make sure you have a
Bendy.
non-disclosure agreement in place.
Absolutely. So, Warren, again, IP in itself is a costly process. Then innovation, open innovation, licensing deals, everything is a costly process. How do you suggest that innovators should go from the point of view of expenses, their commercial viability, and things like that?
It's a great question, and it's always, it's funny, the coaches in America, the inventor coaches who,
Yeah.
they say, just throw an idea out there. You don't have to spend any money.
Yeah.
And so I understand that, philosophically, but it doesn't work. Okay,
Yeah.
because when you send me an idea, the first thing I ask you, have you prototyped it? Have you patented it? These are questions and even if I think the product's good, it's the next thing that's going to be required. So you have to make a decision on it at some point. So it's difficult to get started. But here's what I would say. Here's where I think the specifics are. Developing a working prototype is important. So if you're serious, if it's just a game to you and you're just an idea person, you're throwing it, you're not an inventor. Okay. So if you're an inventor, you build a prototype that works. The money that you spend on that is well spent. And I would say that, sometimes it costs you a few $100s. Sometimes you can build it yourself. But maybe it'll cost you a few $1,000s. That's possible. But you have to make the determination on that. But it's money well spent if you're really serious about this. Now, you may find along the way that you couldn't build what you thought you could, and now that's up a couple of $1,000s is wasted in some ways, but it's not really. It prevented you from wasting a lot of more money down the road. Okay.
Yeah.
The other component that we talked about was intellectual property. There are ways of filing provisional patents. They're less expensive. I always encourage people to get legal counsel. But if you've been through it many times, you might file a provisional on your own. Now, provisional only buys you 12 months. America is now tied in the rest of the world's patent system, and so there is you get a preferred space in that. But when it comes to converting to a non-provisional patent
Yeah.
and getting serious, what I call a big boy patent, it costs money. And again, you have to make a determinant, but these are monies that are spent. So suddenly you could go from a few $100s to a few thousands to, before you know it, $5,000 to $10,000. That's pretty much where I put the cap on it, though. Do not go out and make up 1,000 units, okay, and spend $25,000 doing that. Do not, there's a whole bunch of things. You might go to a trade show and visit. I could tell you how to spend your first 5,000 to 10,000
Yeah.
if you're serious, but you do it in stages and you get positive feedback as you go along, or you bail out. And this helps you if you really are onto something serious. Now, if you want to just take an idea and throw it against the wall, that's fine. But I think that what you're going to find is the odds are long. And God forbid, if you ever found something, the people are not going to pay you full value for your idea. It's just never going to happen. So that's there's a little bit of risk, here. And so you have to mitigate that risk by doing stuff in stages and staying rationally aware of what how it's going.
Beautifully explained. We don't have to spend a lot of chunk all together. We can spend it in stages. For example, as you explained, that we can go to provisional patent, wait for 12 years, see how market is reacting to our product, how our potential customers are reacting to our product, and then take a decision of non-provisional, then take a decision of licensing and things like that.
That's exactly right. And I've done a lot of deals based upon provisional patents. And because of me, because I spent a lot of time setting up these programs, we prefer that the innovator owns the patent.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, "Oh, I'll send you an idea. You patent it, and you own the patent." Okay, this is what they think. This doesn't work. I mean, I'm not saying it never works, but the odds are very, very long with that. We prefer that you own the patent as the innovator, so that we ask you then that if we like it and it's a provisional patent, then before we sign the agreement, we ask that you convert it to a non-provisional, and then you assign it to the company. Now, we typically pay in advance, $5,000. I mean, so that you could use that advance to convert it, and then it becomes your property. You own it, and you have the rights to it. And that's the way we prefer. The companies that I work with prefer to do things.
Wow, awesome. So, as we are moving to the stages, like we discussed, like we can protect using the NDA. Then we discussed about the cost benefit analysis part of it, and now let's move to infringement, because we are going for so many licensing deals and we are trying to share our technology. There is a high risk of infringement. So one thing that we discussed is an NDA. Are there other things that we can keep in mind while entering into licensing deals, disclosing our innovation, or anything that we can do for protecting ourselves from things like patent trolls, patent ticketing? Because especially in technology areas like softwares and high-end technology areas, patent trolls have also become a practice. Like, okay, we have developed something in electronics, we are going to send you a legal notice. So
Yeah. Well, listen, your first step, as you described, is your relationship with the company that you want to license with, and we talked about non-disclosure agreements. The benefit in licensing to a larger company is that they can usually have the legal infrastructure and the clout and the power to fight. So if you license a product with Lifetime Brands, now the Lifetime Brands legal department is making sure that your patent is enforced. And that brings a lot more clout to the table in terms of they have brands, they have other ways of protecting the product, and they have their actual clout in the marketplace that enables them to not just call up someone who's infringing and say stop infringing, but to do something about it that you don't have as an individual. So that's one of the benefits to licensing to a bigger entity, and that's why you want to make sure you get the right partner, so that the right partner can help enforce the patents. Now, let's talk about patent trolls, one of my favorite subjects. The patent troll, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, it does, and maybe more in the tech area, but it's no bigger problem today than it was 100 years ago. I know that statistically. It affects about 17 to 18% of patents, which is what it did in the 1800s. Okay, but on the basis of that, the large tech companies in America have tried to rewrite the patent laws, and they were pretty successful with the American Innovation Act of 2012, which was put into place in 2013. Among things that they put in there, the bane of my existence is the PTAB, the Patent Trial and Appeal Board, which says that you could go through 4 or 5 years of getting your patent issued, and then anybody, but not just the parties who are involved, could go back and challenge your patent. 2/3 of the time that challenge is accepted by the patent office, and 84% of the time, at least one major claim is put in there. And by the way, the only products or the only patents that are litigated that way, and I should say litigated is really something for the courts, but in America now you can go back to this PTAB kangaroo court at the U.S. Patent Office. It's very expensive, to take that back. But the premise of the PTAB was it's supposed to save expensive going to a main court. But the problem is anybody can bring it forth. It doesn't even have to be one of the parties. And then immediately upon acceptance, your patent, which was valid, is now considered no longer valid.
Yeah.
So now you're back at this equal playing field. Instead of if you went to court, you would at least have a valid patent and you would have the advantage.
Yeah.
Having gone through all this thing. So it's a very, very frustrating thing. It's a very unfair practice, and it way outdoes the negative impact of trolls. PTAB has been a killer. I'm on the United States Intellectual Property Alliance National Board, and I'm going down to Atlanta in 3 weeks, and I put together a video about Molly Metz. You can write that name down, Molly Metz, M-E-T-Z. Molly was a 5-time United States jump roping champion. She invented a superior jump rope, spent 5 years getting a patent, put $30,000 into the product. And then as soon as she started selling them, everyone infringed upon her. And then the big guys from CrossFit, the biggest manufacturer for CrossFit, stole her idea, put other people's names on it. And when she told them to stop, by the way, that's what trolls do, but this is an actual person that has the product. And they said, see you later. And they went to PTAB and they got her patents infringed. And she ended up selling her business, and she lost a lot of money on it. And it's a very heartwarming, it's tear-jerking. She's now all the way back to the United States Supreme Court fighting this. And I put together a movie that focuses on Molly. It's a 15-minute movie that we're showing to the entire board to show what's happening to independent inventors, because under the guise of patent trolls, they're using that as an excuse to go in and water down the patent system. Reminds me of Russia going into Ukraine.
Yeah.
Calling Zelensky a Nazi when he's Jewish, and then this fake front and then going in militarily. I know it's not as bad, but I'm just saying, I'm trying to make an over-the-top example.
Got it.
It's not right. It's not right. So when you bring up patent trolls, I don't want to say there is no issue with patent trolls, because there is, but their solution to it has been very, very onerous to independent inventors, and something we're fighting for here in the United States to make sure that we don't lose our edge at innovation, because at the end of the day, we want people to take risks. We want them to invest their time and money, and we want new things. It's what America is all about. It's our lifeblood. If we lose this, it's not going to be a good thing.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you, because I have been also researching in this field since quite a time. Like, I've been reading cases of patent trolls and things like that. For smaller inventors or innovators, it is very, very difficult to fight, because most of the time they'll think like, okay, we just cannot fight with these players, and it's best to enter into a licensing deal.
Well, you can't fight them, if they won't license it though.
Yeah.
And they just take it, it becomes even worse for people. So, and by the way, nobody ever steals an item that's not successful.
Yeah.
So they sit back and they wait, and this is why they do it. This is why the patent system was first put in, to protect people and to create innovation. The American economy has been built on it since 1792. It's had success beyond people's dreams, and this is what builds it. I mean, Google, Apple, these companies that are fighting, they all started with patents, and their algorithms and other things. So, but I always say once they're up in the tree fort, they want to pull the ladder up, and not let any girls up there. It's like no girls allowed. That's a scene we have here in the United States.
And,
We all had tree forts when we were kids.
yeah. And Warren, again, like to mention, I have seen cases where not only patent trolls are doing these practices, but there are bigger companies also which are doing this with smaller inventors, and sometimes it is very difficult. Once I should not say this, but I also entered into a fight with another attorney because they had a big client and we were a small client, and they were
Yeah.
infringing our trademarks, but they were like, okay, we are ready to go to the Supreme Court, but our people, they cannot spend so much money to enter into different stages, and then it's a kind of situation which is very difficult for everybody to handle.
Well, then what they should do is convince you that they have a good case, and you take it on contingency,
Yeah.
and then but if you win in the India Supreme Court, then you get 50% of the reward or something like that. So it makes it worth your while. So
So
you can make a
unfortunately,
determination whether it's worthwhile. But that's what I do try to encourage inventors here, that
correct.
if you can get someone a big law firm to take it for you on contingency and fight it, but then you're going to have to give up a big part of the reward.
So, Warren, unfortunately, in India, we cannot take cases based on contingency. We are
Oh,
covered by law.
what's the
So,
matter? Wow.
yeah, so we can do only fixed fee
Is
costing.
that like an English? Is that from the English system or something? Yeah, that's
Yes, yes.
horrible.
We practice common law, so that is not allowed.
Oh,
So it's like either we pay from our pocket, and it's very hard to,
see, that favors big rich people and corporations,
correct.
which is too bad. So, and I know you have a different societal structure, but
Mhm.
America is supposed to be about the little guy and allowing
Yeah.
freedom. Anybody can grow up to be whatever they want. It doesn't happen that way, but it's our premise. So we do have our system of laws based on the English, but we have significant differences. We also don't have a loser pay system here in
Yeah.
England. The loser in a court trial pays, which even scares small people even more. So maybe it's a little fairer here in the United States. So maybe it'll be an American company that rips you off, and then you can sue them here.
So we have an interesting law, which is, we can get injunctions against threats. So that is very useful when it
Okay.
comes to patent trolls. Like if a patent troll is sending me a notice, I can just go to the court and take an injunction against those threats. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is very, very useful. So we have had cases, I have personally dealt with those cases where we have
Good.
filed a case of groundless threats against people
Right.
who do
Good.
these
Yeah.
practices.
We don't have injunctions or something that have left our vocabulary here, and it's kind of a mess. I've been too involved in this. I'm not an attorney myself, but I understand all the issues, so it's
Yeah.
fun. But yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad you're busy.
So, Warren, now what we'll do is we'll come to you. We have discussed about open innovation, and we'll discuss a little bit about your life. So, it is a quick rapid fire round. Just answer these three questions very, very quickly.
Be like my psychiatrist. You ask a question. I'll
Yes.
say. Okay.
Three things you are grateful for.
I'm grateful for my family, my mother and father, and my family growing up. I'm grateful for the health of my family today. And I am very grateful that I have had a wonderful life in an innovation world, which has been beyond my dreams, exciting and beneficial to me.
Two traits or habits that you think are useful for a professional career.
Well, I like to say this: if you want to go in your own business, someone asked me once, what's a trait I should have if I go into my own business? I said, be able to get up in the morning without an alarm clock.
Wow.
That's one I would say. Being
Awesome.
so motivated, and I would say the other is obviously working hard, and these are important things, but enjoy life too. make sure that you stay open-minded and experience all things in life, because you never know where the experiences you learn outside of business come back to help you. So
Wow.
keep an open mind.
Open mind and get up on time without an alarm clock. And one aspiration you have for the future?
Well, I really, in terms of the subject we're talking about, I have great desire that the next generation of inventors, and those that are just being born, and those that are in their 20s and younger people, continue to have opportunity, and that they grow up into a life where they can pursue their dreams, they're not taken away from them. I'm a big person in freedom, individual freedom and opportunity. I know that that's difficult some places in the world to practice. So get yourself to a place where you can practice it. And my aspiration is for those who come behind me to have the same opportunities. By the way, not just if they're white men. I have 3 daughters. For my daughters, for minority, for people disenfranchised, for all the people of the world that haven't always had access or always had all that inside backing and so forth, to have a world where they can maximize their talents. So that's my aspiration.
Awesome, amazing. And I wish everything comes true. So we are also 2 sisters. So
Yes.
I can relate to this very much.
Well, my mom, my mother was very bright. She graduated from high school at 15 years old. She was number 1 in her class. She was never allowed to go to college, or this is back in World War II in the 1940s, and women didn't go to college, and so she was very, very bright and could have been very successful. And I always, my children, my daughters are all now, one's a lawyer. She works for Goldman Sachs and is in compliance. My middle daughter's getting a PhD in institutional psychology, and my younger daughter works for Pandora Radio, selling digital media in New York City. So they have wonderful relationships with men who recognize and understand that there's tremendous value in what they bring to the table. So that's an amazing thing, and I hope that continues.
Awesome. So Warren, any final thoughts you want to give to our audience before we conclude this podcast?
Well, it's such a pleasure today. I grew up in Switzerland. I lived for 5 years. I do a lot of traveling, and I go to Europe a lot. I have yet to go to India, so maybe someday. But I'm sort of enamored, and I've always read about it, and met many people from India who have been terrific and good friends. So thank you for having me and let me speak to your audience.
Thank you so much, Warren, for your time and your willingness to share. It was absolutely a delight speaking with you.
You got it. All right, Priggya. Well, until we talk again.
Thank you. Hey there. Thank you for attending today's session. If you enjoyed today's session, do follow our channel and consider sharing it with a friend. My name is Priggya Arora, daughter of inspiring parents, alumna of IIT Kharagpur, engineer turned lawyer and entrepreneur, and now founder of PA Legal, where we help creators and innovators protect their intellectual property. Thank you.